there, silly geese. Quackers, what did you bring us this week? That's right, we are supposed to continue the series on whether or not the Hunger Games films are great movie adaptations. And we have already covered the first movie, The Hunger Games. If you haven't seen it yet, check out the playlist either in the card or down in the description below. This time we are taking on Catching Fire, and it's a fan favorite, so I can't wait to get into it. For this series, we are using the framework provided by the Thoroughly Modern Reviewer, which means we're most interested in whether or not the film respects the source character and materials that it's representing, and we're looking at whether or not they make the most of the new medium, in this case film. The main point of this whole exercise is not to sit here and complain about all the changes they've made. I know there are tons of them. The real issue is whether or not the message, the political commentary that we see in the Hunger Games series makes it to the screen. That's the primary goal of what we're doing here. So if I missed something that you think is important, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, the things that I don't say out loud, you might see over here as a green or red plus or minus mark to show the wins and fails of the movie adaptation from my perspective. I think that just about covers us though. Let's get into it. Great, so we're back in Pan Am, back in District 12, and Katniss is on the hunt.
Oh, whoa. Easy. Saw some turkeys on the way here. Crossed right in front of me like I wasn't even there.
How rude of them.
That's what happens. You spend 6 days a week working the mines, and stupid birds start to think they own these woods.
And already we have our first message representation of Gale. At this point, he's 18 years old, working 12 hours a day in the mines, 6 days a week, with only Sundays free, and he spends his Sundays with Katniss. But this day, where she's about to go on her victory tour, is not a Sunday, and so she actually does this whole snare run thing alone. She does it daily while Gale is working so that his family is provided for. Some people misinterpret her doing this to help provide for his family as him not being able to support enough, which technically I guess is true, but we need to look at the bigger picture of what's happening in Gale's family, because I think we overlook it a lot. Not specifically with Gale's family, but for a lot of the families in District 12, we have people taking Tesserae. And Gale does not want his younger siblings taking Tesserae. So Katniss is helping provide for his family so that none of the younger kids are at the same risk that Gale was. And even then, according to Katniss, he doesn't really want to accept help from her after the games. Here I am with buckets of money, far more than enough to feed both our families now, and he won't take a single coin. It's even hard for him to let me bring in meat, although he'd surely have kept my mother and Prim supplied if I'd been killed in the games. I tell him he's doing me a favor, that it drives me nuts to sit around all day. Even so, I never drop off the game while he's at home, which is easy since he works 12 hours a day. So as you can see, the version of Gale that we're getting in the books is proud and not interested in being a charity case at all. Not that I'm claiming that that's what's happening in the movie, it just seems more likely based on the representation we're seeing here. Also, I don't know why the turkeys would be more cautious around him if he were there every day, because Katniss is still doing the snare run daily, so it's not like the turkeys are accustomed to no humans being around. Just wanted to point that out. They center Katniss in this shot of them doing the snares, or handling the snares. I don't know the verbs for this, y'all. But Katniss is not the main person that handles the snares. She is practically assisting Gale in the snares that he set up. We're gonna look at how she talks about his snares, because this is an important thing that she builds up as we go through the entire series to help orient the reader to who Gale is and what his contribution to the future war is. I get a good haul from the traps. He's something of a whiz with snares. As I go along, carefully resetting each snare, I know I can never quite replicate his eye for balance. His instinct for where the prey will cross the path. It's more than experience, it's a natural gift. Right, so Katniss is very clear that it's Gale's innovation and design for snares that enables them to catch so much food, especially because as she's coping with her PTSD, she's actually not that great at staying focused enough to hunt a lot of the time. She even mentions that a lot of times when she goes to the Hob, she doesn't really trade so much anymore. She pays for things with coin now that she's rich. They handle the PTSD flashback really well. I love that they show the detail of the bows being hidden in a trunk and them coming outside the electric fence. We can see that we're already back in District 12, and then we have this conversation where Gale and Katniss discuss whether or not he should come see her off for the victory tour. And what we're seeing here is a really different dynamic than the one we see in the books. Katniss is sort of expressing that she would like for him to be in attendance for that event, where in the books he's working, and in addition it would just cause problems. Another thing to highlight here is that in the books, the Capitol portrays Gale and his family as Katniss's family, her cousins. And so this romance, I don't even know if calling it a romance makes sense exactly, but the way that they're positioned more as almost in a relationship does not work when you actually look at the books. I imagine that they did this so that they could keep the marketing for the love triangle alive. They do a great job overemphasizing it throughout this movie, but I'm sure we'll get to that. Let's continue.
It's only a few weeks. I'll be back before the snow melts.
Yeah, a lot can happen in a few weeks.
Are we gonna do this again? Gale, it was an act.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I did what I had to do to survive. If I didn't, I'd be dead.
I had to do that. At least once.
Few things we need to talk about here. First, that Katniss and Gale do not have this conversation about the performance in the arena being an act. They actively do not have this conversation. And then we have what really happened with the kiss, because it's not quite like that. As I've already pointed out, there's some sort of non-relationship relationship developing or already established between Gale and Katniss in the movie, which is fine. We just saw Gale kiss her inside of District 12. And somehow we are not aware quite how dangerous that situation is, even though we definitely should know that Katniss is supposed to be pretending to be in love with Peeta on the tour. So there was no reason for him to take this risk and do it inside the district. That's not what happens in the book. Let's take a look at the actual scene and the circumstances of this kiss in that context, because it's really not cool. Katniss waits a while before she meets privately with Gale, weeks after all the ceremonies and stuff that she had to do as a victor with Peeta. Once everything settles down and she's pretty sure that there are no cameras or whatever following her, she decides to take the risk, not tell anyone, including her family, and head out into the woods on a Sunday to meet up with Gale. I went to our place, Gale's and mine, where we had shared breakfast the morning of the reaping that sent me into the games. I waited at least 2 hours. I'd begun to think that he'd given up on me in the weeks that had passed, or that he no longer cared about me, hated me even. The idea of losing him forever, my best friend, the only person I'd ever trusted with my secrets, was so painful I couldn't stand it. Not on top of everything else that had happened. I could feel my eyes tearing up and my throat starting to close the way it does when I get upset. Then I looked up, and there he was, 10 feet away, just watching me. Without even thinking, I jumped up and threw my arms around him, making some weird sound that combined laughing, choking, and crying. He was holding me so tightly that I couldn't see his face, but it was a really long time before he let me go, and then he didn't have much choice because I had gotten this unbelievably loud case of the hiccups and had to get a drink. We did what we always did that day. Ate breakfast, hunted and fished and gathered, talked about people in town, but not about us. His new life in the mines, my time in the arena, just about other things. By the time we were at the hole in the fence that's nearest the hob, I think I really believed that things could be the same, that we could go on as we always had. Then suddenly, as I was suggesting I take over the daily Snare run, he took my face in his hands and kissed me. I was completely unprepared. Then he let me go and said I had to do that, at least once. I tried to decide how I felt about the kiss, if I had liked it or resented it, but all I really remembered was the pressure of Gale's lips and the scent of the oranges that still lingered on his skin. After this, Katniss decides that she probably has to talk to him and plans out this whole speech about how she's not really looking for a romantic relationship, but when they meet up to go hunting, he doesn't say anything about it. So he doesn't talk to her about it before, he doesn't talk to her about it after. It was a really not cool move of him to pull, given the complicated situation she's in. And while it's not downtown, it's pretty close to the Hob. Maybe being near the Hob, it should have been safe because of the community that they're a part of. I'm not really sure. But it was a bold risk of him to take so close to the district. Buttercup does not like Victor's village. He actually spends a lot of time at their old house, which somehow we don't go visit. I love the way that they handle Haymitch's house being a disaster due to his mental health, his PTSD, his alcoholism, it just being a complete wreck. They nailed that. I also love that they have him with the knife that he sleeps with and not even close to actually causing her any harm. It reflects the comment she makes in Catching Fire about how you would think that somebody who sleeps with a knife every night could actually hit a house with it.
If you wanted to be babied, you should have asked PETA.
Would you like some bread, Katniss?
No, I ate at the Hob, but thank you.
I've talked about this in the Hunger Games adaptation videos, how they tend to minimize Katniss's relationship to her community in the movies. I believe that this is to bolster the claim that she is a chosen one. That is not really how she's portrayed in the book. She is a staple in her community, really. She is known to trade with people of all kinds. The mayor, the head of the peacekeepers, just individual peacekeepers, and all sorts of people. So she actually is fairly well connected, whether she realizes it or not. That's why they're able to put together a fund to help support her and PETA while they're in the games. Instead, we don't see any of that. In this particular situation, Katniss was supposed to have had her food in the Hob with Greasy Say and Darius. They completely erase Darius in this film and consequently the next ones. And I think that that's awful. The whole conversation around AVOXes being overlooked in the films is an interesting choice, especially considering that they do show them in the background, they just don't acknowledge the role that they play. I believe that this is important because they're erasing her ties to the community. We don't see how close she is to Greasy Say or to peacekeepers like Darius. We don't see the relationship that she and Gale would have with Cray, the current head of peacekeepers, or her relationship with the mayor and his family. They got rid of all of that. That may help with the view that she is a chosen one trope. Katniss is not a chosen one. She accidentally builds community support around herself by being a caring person. A genuine, authentic person that wants to protect people that are not in a position to protect themselves. This is something Joanna actually comments on in Mockingjay, so we'll get to that at some point. But I think it's important that we regularly acknowledge that Katniss does not do this on her own. She would not do this on her own. She's not interested in being a rebel leader. She accidentally becomes a symbol for the cause. I believe that just about wraps up part 1 of the series on whether Catching Fire is a great film adaptation. Remember, we're not going to decide whether it's a foul take or a foul take until the final video in the series, so stick with us. But at this point, let's talk about what we have seen. We saw that Gale is still a completely different character in the films, that Katniss is greatly misrepresented here already as somebody looking for some sort of relationship with Gale. We also see the continuation of erasing Katniss's ties to her community, which is problematic given that she is about to become part of a rebellion where she is going to need support. So that's fun and great. Next time we will be looking at Snow's visit to the Everdeen house in the Victor's Village. So looking forward to that. I think we're done though. Quackers?